Hello and welcome to Moscow Report for February 27th, 2022. The Ghost of Kiev, a hero, a myth, a legend. It looks like his home base may have been struck and destroyed. Now, this is coming from the Russian defense media, and what we're seeing is actual damage to the Ivano Frankivsk Air Force base. Now, as you can see, it is significant damage with a large number of mig-29s that have been destroyed or heavily damaged at this location. This is a critical piece of infrastructure and something that we are going to look at briefly here. Now, normally I do not do these in-depth reviews. I keep that information to myself. However, I decided to share this with everybody. Let's take a look at the position of Ivano Frankivsk. Ivano Frankivsk is one of the former major airports that was built and developed for use during the Cold War. The Ivano Frankivsk airport hosted a large number of mig-29 aircraft Su-33s as a defensive position in western Ukraine along the borders with Romania. As you can see, this is the airfield here, and we can quickly ascertain a large number of mig-29 aircraft. Up to a third or as much as half of the active mig-29 aircraft of Ukraine would have been based at this airfield. From the observation here, the aircraft were parked outside. We have weapon and fuel storage here, as well as additional runways and the actual international airport right there. It is common in Soviet Union to link up both a military airport and the international airport in one terminal, cost effective. Growing up in Soviet Union, I used to see MiG-31 stabilizers on the runway just outside of the Domodedovo airport myself. Now, what we've got here is we do have some hardened bunkers that you can see here. If there was aircraft in those hardened bunkers, they would have survived. We've got a couple of trainers here that are on display or maintenance, but the majority of the aircraft would have been parked outside. If the war events had started and the Ukrainians would have moved their aircraft inside, they may have survived. We have additional set of bunkers to the west part of the airport, and here we can actually see a couple of MiG-29s that are being pulled out of them. So this is Ivano Frankivsk. Now, why is this airport important? I'm going to go to the map of Ukraine here. So we've got the map of Ukraine here, and if you look at this map, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing in the directions of the Russian advances here. So there was one set of advances that came in from Belarus towards Kiev. Another set of advances came in into Odessa and across the Perikop right here. Additional advances, of course, came in from the Donetsk and Luhansk. And at this point, the areas that were captured or taken under control, or that battles are ongoing in, are these areas here. As you can see, the western part of Ukraine has not been touched. There have been a few strikes, but mainly all the attacks have been occurring in eastern, southern, and northern parts of Ukraine near Kiev. Why is Ivano Frankivsk important? Ivano Frankivsk is located right here. Now, as you can see, this is way out to the west in Ukraine. This location is extremely close to both Romania and Slovakia and Hungary. Now, Slovakia and Hungary being on the side here, this is where it gets interesting. All of these countries are NATO allies. So we've got Romania down here, we've got Hungary here, and we've got Slovakia here. We've got Poland right here. If you've been monitoring the refuelers from the NATO, they've all been positioned either here, providing refueling for the F-16s of the NATO forces, or over here on the border with Romania. All of these countries here are NATO countries, which means that if there is any sort of incursion, any loss of life, any aircraft getting shot down on any of these countries' territory, NATO will have to get involved. As you can see, Ivano Frankivsk is very close to the western border of Ukraine, next to Lviv. Lviv is the third or fourth largest city in Ukraine. Lviv is one of the most western aligned cities in Ukraine. It is extremely western aligned, and if there was any love for the Russians, none of it would be in Lviv and in this western part of Ukraine. So let's keep this in mind as we look at this map. There were additional critical airports that were hit, but this line right here has been pretty much the no-go line for Putin. Everything past this line, Putin has no support whatsoever and greater chances of encountering NATO forces. The other important thing about this Ivano Frankivsk airport is that this is the way that supplies can come in from NATO countries to Ukraine, from Germany, France, and Poland. They'll be coming into Lviv. They'll be coming into Ivano Frankivsk. If both of these airports are hit and the air bases are destroyed, it is going to be very difficult for supplies to come into Ukraine from NATO countries and from other allies. Why is this important? That's because other critical airports in Ukraine have been destroyed. There are two major airports other than the Borispol airport in Kiev. There's two more airports right outside of Kiev, and these are the critical military airports. Let's take a look at them. All right, first off, we've got, let me see which one. Okay, there we go. This is the Antonov Airport, as it's called. This is just outside of Kiev. If we zoom out, just on the outskirts of Kiev, just to the west. Here, there was a loss of the AN-225 Maria aircraft. This is where the Antonov factory is, and this is where it's pretty much like the Boeing airfield in Renton, Washington. So this airport would have been hit and struck. There was severe fighting for it. It's unlikely that the runway is useful, which means that this airport would be not available to forces of Ukraine. Just to the south of it is the Vasilivsk airport. Again, if we zoom out and look at the map, very close by. We're talking, let's do a quick distance measurement. We're talking 10 kilometers, 5 miles from the center of Kiev. This is a military airport. The Vasilivsk airport houses MiG-29s, Su-27s, and other air defense aircraft. As you can see here, we've got MiG-29s and Sus parked here. We've got some additional hardened bunkers that are along the north here, in the northeast of the airport. A lot of MiG-29s kind of parked outside. I don't see the bunkers being used. I actually am having trouble distinguishing the actual bunkers. If there were bunkers, they probably got removed. These are sand piles. These are not bunkers. These are sand piles to prevent them from getting shot at by tanks or other vehicles along the ground, and also to prevent shrapnel. If a bomb were to hit here, for example, it would prevent shrapnel from hitting other aircraft by direct impact. This airport had been taken and largely destroyed. There are some bunkers in the west. As you can see, their use is questionable. If Ukrainian forces were smart, they would put those aircraft into those bunkers or relocate them elsewhere. My guess is that once the Russians started attacking, these aircraft would have been moved to other airfields, including Ivano Frankivsk. So as you can see, these major airports outside of Kiev have been attacked and largely destroyed or taken over by Russians. Having Ivano Frankivsk, the airport that the Ghost of Kiev was likely flying from, and the last safe airport for Ukraine being destroyed, is another critical hit to Ukraine's air defenses, as well as Ukraine's ability to deliver and receive supplies via air. Thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe.
Работают все радиостанции Советского Союза. Передаем сообщение ТАСС.